Hello, I'm JAMILA Musayeva, an international social etiquette consultant and the author of the book Etiquette, the Least You Need to Know. Today's video is dedicated to something that a lot of you have been asking me, especially after my video on how to be a good speaker and how to be a good listener. I'm going to actually link them down below in the description box. So today's video is dedicated to public speaking. Let's look at what is public speaking. Let's look at what are some tips that you need to take into account when preparing to give a public speech. And at the end, I'll have some final words for you. So stay tuned until the end and let's get started. First and foremost, what is public speaking? As the word itself entails, public speaking means talking directly to a group of people, to an audience, giving a speech in a structured manner. So it's usually face-to-face and it involves addressing to a group of people, and the purpose of a public speech could be one of the three. The first one is to inform. That means to give information about a topic, a service, a subject, whatever that might be. It's just spreading knowledge about a given topic. The second intention could be to persuade. That means to convince, to make your audience believe that either your standpoint or your idea or whatever it is that you're trying to persuade, convince them about is true. So a lot of politicians give actually speeches with an intention to persuade. And the third intention could be to entertain, and that means to make your audience laugh or be interested or enjoy your speech. So a lot of comedians give speeches just for that particular reason, to entertain. Usually any kind of public speech has one of the three intentions, but sometimes the speech could incorporate two aspects, perhaps to inform and to persuade, or to persuade and to entertain. That could also happen. Public speaking takes its root to ancient Egypt, but it was really in ancient Greece that public speaking became a form of art. It was required for men to give public speeches as a part of their civic studies in front of an assembly or a court. From there, the art of public speaking traveled to ancient Rome, where a man named Cicero became the master of it. He's considered one of the greatest, or perhaps the greatest, orator of all times. Rhetoric, or the art of public speaking, became part of the lifestyle of men of those times. They practiced it every day. They had to give public speeches every day. Just like men today, work out, men of ancient Rome and Greece would give a public speech. This form of art was so important to the overall development of men that it was included in a part of the liberal arts education of men of Renaissance and Middle Ages. Why do people fear public speaking? The truth is, a lot of people have that fear, and the reason is because they're scared that they're going to make a mistake and be mocked at either during the presentation or after. They're scared they're going to be judged. They're scared that they lack the knowledge to actually talk about a given subject or topic. They might be scared that they might look like imposters, or maybe people will realize that they're not actually knowledgeable in the subject, or they're not true to themselves, or they're not who they are, who they claim to be. Some people are scared, they might make a pronunciation mistake, or they're scared that, people that are going to be listening to them have much more knowledge in the subject than they do. Whatever those reasons are, the fears are real. People have their own reasons to fear that, and that's okay. We all have those fears, and in one way or another, some have more fears than others, but this is something we can work on in order to overcome those fears and be a better public speaker. In fact, according to Washington Post, one of the greatest fears among Americans is the fear of public speaking. It actually has a term for it, glossophobia, which is not a medical term, it's not a medical disease, it's actually an anxiety disorder. And with the right mindset and with the right amount of training, people can actually overcome that fear. However, some people have very extreme cases of glossophobia where even the mere idea of having to give a speech in front of a public can actually make them faint. It can make them, lose their consciousness. So it's a very extreme case, but that can happen. And that doesn't mean that with a lot of training that will go away. The fear is still going to be there, but with little step by step, that fear can be broken down and hopefully over time completely overcome. I want to clarify this point for people that have extreme or perhaps mild cases of glossophobia, that The truth is that people are not born, or majority of people are not born as naturally great speakers. They are not born that way. It's something that's acquired. It's a skill. It's like learning how to drive, learning how to bike. It's a skill that gets improved over time. The more you use it, the better you become at it. Of course, there are some people in history of humankind that were great orators, and they were born like that. They had this innate capacity to speak really well, and they had no fear of the public. But most of us learn it. In fact, a lot of the politicians that you are watching today have never been so good at giving public speeches. You can actually watch some of those speeches in the beginning of their term and then compare it to the end of their term, and you will notice a tremendous amount of difference and the progress that they have made as public speakers. So now let's look at 4 aspects that are important to take into account when preparing to give a public speech. At the end of this video, I'm also going to share 2 important points, so make sure you stay tuned until the end of this video and watch it and benefit from them. So the 4 points are: know your audience, know your subject, know your speech, and know yourself. Aspect number 1, knowing your audience. What I mean by that is, when preparing to give a public speech, make a research about your audience. Preferably if you can get the data about their age, gender, maybe cultural background, educational background, interests, hobbies, all of that. The more information you gather about your audience, the better off you're going to be, because you will be able to prepare your speech in a way, in the language that will be coherent and accessible to your audience. For example, if I know I need to talk to a group of school children, for example, for primary grade, I need to talk about etiquette. I will prepare a speech in a way that will be comprehensible for their age group. If I need to give a training for young adults, let's say from a different culture or different educational background, then I'll adapt my language in a way that will be most comprehensible for that level of education, age, gender, and cultural background. So depending on who you're going to be talking, you'll modify the language of your speech in order to be able to convey your message in the most appropriate way to your audience. This will help you to connect immediately with your audience. So for example, you're asked to give a topic about, climate change to people in village, and then you're asked to give a speech on climate change to MBA students. Your message might stay the same, but the words, the language that you're going to be using, the examples that you're going to be using are going to be different, because you need to be able to connect with those 2 audiences that you have. So connection is very important when giving a public speech, and a good way to connect with your audience is to share a personal story or give an example from your own life that will help them relate to you in one way or another. And make sure to find whatever it is that you can actually connect with them. Is it your cultural background? Is it your age? Is it your gender? Is it how you grew up that helps you connect with them in a way that you understand where they're coming from or what their concerns are? Connection is important because it's gonna be able to help you establish rapport, which is a trustworthy relationship, trust from the audience towards you as a speaker. Aspect number 2 is know your subject. And when I mean by knowing, I just don't necessarily only mean to have facts, statistical data, some scientific explanation or arguments or data to support your ideas. It is truly about knowing your subject in and out in a way that you feel passionate about it. You have to feel very adamant about what you're talking, because even if whatever you lack in knowledge or whatever you lack in examples or perhaps some data, you're gonna make it through the passion that you have for that specific topic. You can fake information, but you can't really fake emotions and passion. This is something that the audience immediately will feel. And no matter what you're talking about, even the most boring subject, when you feel passionate about it, the audience as well will feel very passionate about it. This is an exercise I make my students do in my classes. So I assign them topics to give a public speech about. It could be nutrition, really a lot of different topics that I want them to research and learn more about. So they go home, they do their research, they come, they have to give me a speech for 5 to 7 minutes. They're able to identify terms, they have statistical data, they have PowerPoint, they're talking about it. A lot of times they don't have the passion for it. It's something that they're not interested in, and I just made them do a presentation on that. So that really is felt. So when they are talking, you can hear all the information, all the necessary things you need to hear, but you often don't feel the passion that they have for a given topic. And then on that same spot, I ask them to do an impromptu speech, and I say, what are you interested in? And that could be basketball, football, whatnot. And I say, okay, start now and give a speech about your favorite football player, or just explain what the football is about and why everyone should watch it. And 9 out of 10 times that I've asked my student to do an impromptu speech about the thing that he likes the most, they're going to be very good at it. Even though they lack the statistical data, information, definition, they're not able to find the right terms to explain, but they are so passionate about it that they infect the whole class with their interest about that topic. So you can fool people with information, but you can't fool people with emotions. And it's important when I say know your subject, I mean know exactly what you're talking about and inspire yourself to learn more about it and inspire yourself to actually feel passionate about it, because that is what's going to be felt first. So when I say know your subject, I want you to know that you have to prepare your emotions before you prepare the text. Aspect number 3, know your speech. Organize your speech in a clear, coherent manner. You have to have usually one main idea or main intention or main information, and then you have to have 3 examples or more if your speech allows, but usually 3 is the best number. You have to have 3 examples to use. That could be statistical data, examples from your personal life, or history, historical facts, whatever it is that you want to use. Then you use those examples to support your main idea. So all of those examples have to weave into each other to actually go back and refer to your main point, your grand idea in your speech. You could also use maybe a catchphrase or perhaps a combination of words that you're going to repeat throughout your speech in order to bring the attention of the audience back to the main point. Actually, if you look at Martin Luther King's speech, I Had a Dream, he goes on repeating this phrase after every part of his speech. In fact, the repetition of these phrases or perhaps a sentence is a rhetorical technique that is called anaphora in Greek terminology, and it's often used in motivational speeches because it helps to emphasize the idea and always bring back the attention of the audience to the main point of the speaker. The use of anaphora is very hypnotizing. It brings a rhythm to your speech. You say something, you repeat your main point. You say something, you repeat your main point. But also it very much helps to tie the whole speech in a very beautiful way. Introduction is super important. It's the groundbreaking moment where you get the trust of your audience or you don't. They make up their mind about you being someone they want to listen actively to or not. No matter how else your speech goes after that, if you don't have a catchy introduction, most likely you've lost your audience's attention. You could start off introduction with a good joke, but make sure you test this joke before you actually say it out loud in front of the audience for the first time, because something that might be funny to you might not be funny for your audience, and then them not laughing at your joke will actually put you in a very uncomfortable position, and then you're gonna not be able to continue with your speech very smoothly. It is gonna, make you feel less confident in yourself if your start off wasn't so good. So I would say use a joke, but only when you're confident it's gonna make your audience laugh. You could, however, also use rhetorical question in the beginning, a provocative storytelling or provocative question to your audience that will make them think about something. Or you could share something from your personal life that relates to the audience and then end it with a question. Whatever it is that you use, make sure that it actually is relatable, understandable to your audience, and it's gonna get their attention. I actually want to read this quote from a speech by Steve Jobs that he gave at Stanford University, and I love this speech. I always use it as an example in my classes, and I want to read it to you. It says, "I'm honored to be with you today at the commencement from one of the finest universities in the world. I never graduated from college. Truth be told, this is the closest I've ever gotten to a college graduation. It was truth, It was daring, it was sharing his personal, story, as well as kind of funny because a man who has actually never graduated is coming here to give a graduation speech. So he got the attention of the audience immediately, and he was able to retain it for the entire duration of his speech. Your speech should end with a conclusion that evokes feelings and emotions. If introduction has to catch the attention, then conclusion has to make them live pondering about your speech. Maybe you said something that they never thought was possible, or maybe you informed them about something that they are not, want to believe in, or maybe goes against their ideas of life. Whatever it is that you have said, your final message should leave them thinking about your speech in general. If they are thinking afterwards, then you've done a good job. And I also want again to use the amazing speech by Steve Jobs that he ended with, "Stay hungry and stay foolish." One might think, why would the world's most successful man at the time offer college graduates to stay hungry and to stay foolish? It was a very provocative ending to the speech and made them think after about it for quite a while. And now today we see that quotes all over the places. We see them on inspiration boards and motivational speeches. We see them on, as stickers, bumper stickers. It's everywhere now, and that's what your ending should look like. Another famous speech in history that I really love using as an example is a speech by JFK at his inaugural address. And I want to read this, where he ended the speech by saying, "And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do to you, ask what you can do for your country. My fellow citizens of the world, ask not what America will do for you, but what together we can do for freedom of man." And then he left them pondering, and we have been pondering about it until today. Fourth aspect is know yourself, and what I mean by that is know your own body. Be able to control it. Use your body as a visual instrument. Make sure that your body language is coherent with your message, and that is important. If, by the way, you haven't checked out my body language tips video, make sure you do that. I'll link them down below in the description box. Learn to speak not only with your tongue but also with your body. When your body is tense and you are so stressed out that no matter how beautiful your speech is, no one is going to believe you, because your body says, "Don't believe me, I'm super tense, I'm super intense, I'm not really sure if what I'm saying is right." So your body's language should be the same as your message. If you want to learn how to use your body, you can also watch some politicians, some prominent speakers, and observe their body language when they're giving a speech. Sometimes when they want to draw your attention to something and emphasize that it's important, they would raise their finger like that, pointing that it's important to be remembered. Sometimes when they want to say something, that we are open to an idea, we are ready to do this, they would lean in towards the audience. Other times when they want to say we're going to conquer and get this over with, or be able to fix whatever it is, they're going to be doing this fist gesture like that. So your body language can actually be used as a visual aid to your message. Also make sure that your palms are visible to the audience when you're talking. You can Google a lot of images of different presidents when they're giving speech, and most likely you'll be able to see the insides of their palm. It translates as openness, as honesty, as the person that is listening to you can actually trust. So open palms is a very important gesture. Also, don't get fixated into one spot. If you have a stage, make sure you actually use that space, but also don't walk around just back and forth like that nervously. Make sure you use it over time to kind of get a glimpse of each part of your audience. As well, don't forget to smile. This is so important. Make sure that you have an eye contact with everyone in the audience. Not every individual, but every segment of the audience. So look in the middle, to the sides, so everyone feels like you've noticed them. Do not fixate your eyes on one particular person, because that will make them feel uncomfortable. And if you're very nervous in the beginning, you can look at the very back of the audience, choose a spot and kind of glance there. It doesn't have to be a person. It could be a spot, maybe a seat, maybe a wall. Just make sure that way that you can ease yourself into the speech, and then once you feel more comfortable, then you can start looking at everyone in the audience. A good acronym that I tell my students to use is SOLAIRE, which stands for smile, open gesture, lean in, eye contact, and relax. Now, final points that I wanted to share with you that I want you to remember, and they might actually help you in preparation. First, always do a run test. It's important to run through your speech, general, how you're going to be presenting it. Use a mirror. If you don't have anyone at home to look at you, you can do a Zoom call with a friend and ask them to test you. You can ask your friends and family if they're at home to actually see you do the speech in front of them. And be mindful that they're going to be giving their comments, and say up front that you will be ready to receive any constructive comments in order to improve your speech, because the speech that you actually get to see on TED Talks or any public speech is the one that has been reworked, remodeled, rewritten multiple times and rehearsed a lot more than that. So it's important to be prepared, and running a sort of a test of your speech is important to help you get into the mood and understand what are some things that you need to work on and what are the things that you are already good at. When stepping on the floor and standing in front of a large audience of people, what is important to remember is that everyone in this large audience are humans just like you. They have their own fears, they have their own weaknesses, they also have their own insecurities. Whatever that is that you're scared of, they all have that, and it's okay. And you're just standing in front of a fellow human beings and giving a speech. And the fact that you have been chosen to give a speech says something about you, that you either have that knowledge or expertise or passion or information, whatever it is that you have, you are chosen to give the speech. So be confident in yourself. Final tip for today is find a role model. Who is the person who you're looking up to in the way they speak, in the way they use their body language, and the way they talk about the things that are interesting or important to them. This is actually an assignment we were given in our voice and diction class when I was a college student in GW. And I really love this assignment because I had no idea who my inspiration was, and it was in 2010 that I started Googling some female public speakers, and I stumbled upon Queen Rania. I really loved her style of speaking, her manner of speaking, the way she presented the information, how she used her body language. So for me, she was a role model, and I used her an example in my class to explain why I liked and why I got inspired by her. So I think that now you can see me trying to emulate her as well sometimes when I'm giving my speech, and I think this is absolutely healthy and very good to have a role model in that, especially when you are a beginner in this journey and you need to have someone to guide you through this process. Having a role model can be like a roadmap to you. You would know what are some things that you need to work on, what are some things that you're probably already good at. Maybe you would get some tips in terms of how you could use your body. So having an inspiration is very good for the beginners. I'm sure you're going to be your own kind of a good public speaker, but having an inspiration never hurts. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found these tips useful and applicable in improving your public speaking skills, no matter if you have to do a speech in front of your classmates or perhaps a presentation at work. Whatever it is that you have to do, I hope you can put into good use these tips and actually benefit from them. Thank you very much for watching this video until the very end, and I hope to see you in my next ones. Bye!